This week on Excelsior Journeys, we are talking with producer, director Julia Marchese. She has a wonderful film that's out there on Amazon Prime and on Tubi called Out of Print. This is the movie you want to see if you are a film lover. Julia and I talk about how she got started over at the New Beverly Theater, how her experiences there led her to create Out of Print, how the later experiences led her to do her next project, which is a Stephen King Dollar Baby. And we even got to sneak in a couple of references about the Chipmunk Adventure. There's a lot to cover. I really hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to the Excelsior Journeys with George Soroy. Prepare to ignite.
Is there a burning desire within to share your creativity with the rest of the world? Do you insist on pursuing your passion by any means necessary? Then you are on an Excelsior journey, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Excelsior Journeys. My name is George Soroy, and thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy what you hear, which I hope you have, we have passed over 75 episodes. We are not stopping anytime soon. If you enjoy it, by all means, please spread the word to your friends, your family members. Just let them know about he'sgotit.com/podcasts, where they can choose which platform they want to subscribe to. If they are an iPhone user, then please go ahead and subscribe on the Apple Podcast app. All your rates, reviews, support, it all means the world to me. One of my favorite experiences from living in New York City for over 17 years was around 2007, 2008 or so, when my wife and I took a trip into New York City, and we indulged in a triple feature at the Ziegfeld Theater in New York City, RIP Ziegfeld Theater. It breaks my heart knowing that wonderful theater is no longer there. But we were there to take in 3 classic films. We own them all, but at the same time, there is something to be said about seeing it on the biggest screen possible. And getting to watch Back to the Future and watching some kids that have never seen it for the first time really enjoy it and be talking about it and everything after the movie and hearing their favorite moments. It was amazing. And then a few hours later, we got to see E.T. Unfortunately, it was the 20th anniversary cut, so we got to see the E.T. with CGI and the walkie-talkies instead of the shotguns, and wasn't as great an experience, but at the same time, it's always wonderful to see E.T. on the big screen, no matter what version it is. But then that night, we got to see Jaws, and it was a wonderful experience because this huge theater was about half full, and everyone was so dialed into what they were watching. And there was even a host that came in and talked a little bit about the movie, about the making of it, some behind the scenes info, about the development of the story itself, about the Peter Benchley novel, some really good factoids. And that really got everyone in the mood to sit down and enjoy this classic. And it was a great experience for my wife too, because that was her first time seeing Jaws. So getting to see it at the Ziegfeld Theater, I was envious that was how she was going to get broken in with it. That was really one of my first tastes of revival cinema, getting to see movies that I've known and loved for years on a big screen. And it was very similar to the year before in 2006 when my friends and I went to go see 2001 at the Ziegfeld. And it was an original print, so it's with the blue MGM logo. It's with the overture. It's with an intermission. Just an amazing experience. And it helps that 2001 is my all-time favorite movie. So there you go. Little did I know that Quentin Tarantino was purchasing the land on the New Beverly Theater, basically guaranteeing its place in Los Angeles for a long time to come. And New Beverly, if you don't know, New Beverly is one of the more well-known revival houses. And when I say revival houses, they do a double feature of old movies every day. And they are the subject of Julia Marchese's film, Out of Print. And if you haven't seen Out of Print, I strongly recommend you do. There is nothing that will stop you from seeing it, because you can get it on Amazon Prime. You can get it on Tubi. You can watch it for free, but I strongly recommend you buy it, because Julia Marchese has a great story to tell about the New Beverly and about revival cinema and about the eventual loss of 35 millimeter prints, and how much of an impact that will make on the film industry. She is here with us this week to talk to us about all of this and more. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Julia Marchese. Julia, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing peachy keen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being a part of this. This is really, really cool. And I knew that as soon as I saw that documentary, that I definitely needed to have you on here to not only talk a little bit about, your experience and everything, but also everything that's happened in your world since, because I knew that, that things were just going to keep on getting bigger and better.
Thank you.
So speaking of which, you just had an Indiegogo project that you have going. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I ran an Indiegogo campaign last October for a short film. So I am a very, very big Stephen King fan. And my favorite story by him is called I Know What You Need. It's in the collection Night Shift. And I got the rights to make it as a short film. So he has a program called Dollar Baby, where you can buy the rights to some of his short stories for $1 for 1 year. But it has to be 45 minutes or under, a non-profit, non-broadcast. So it's a way for filmmakers to, put their mark on a story. But the coolest thing about it is that the contract with him says that you have to send a finished copy of the film to Stephen King. So, making this film that he will be watching the film himself, which is insane, that he still, after all this time, wants to see it, that he has interest in seeing how other people see his work. And so I'm a constant reader. So the most exciting part for me is that the story takes place at the University of Maine, which he attended up in Orono, but then the story is also set there. So we'll be filming on location at the place where the story is set. So like on the campus itself. So I'm over the moon. So excited about that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And it's great that you're actually the second Dollar Baby filmmaker that I've had on here. My first one was
awesome.
Yeah, my first one was actually a friend of mine from high school, Chris Etheridge, who went on to he did the Dollar Baby of Survivor Type.
Oh, nice.
And
that's a great one.
Yeah, he did a really good job with it, and I was one of the people who got to invest in it, so I got my own copy of it, and I was very, very thrilled to see that. And he's gone on to actually do a couple of films already, so it's really cool to see that great kind of launch. Really, like that's a terrific. I've always loved the way that Stephen King does this. Have you gotten to meet any other filmmakers that have done this?
Yes, I have. When I started gearing up to do my Indiegogo, there's a nice little group of them on Facebook that everybody's very helpful. And if I had questions, they were, willing to answer them. And so I met with a couple of them. This was pre-pandemic, of course, and talked to them about how it had gone for them and what kind of ideas they had and stuff. So it was like a really nice, welcoming family of people who are willing to help, because it's a very kind of select club. But it's funny because everybody's like, well, how did you get the rights? And I'm like, here you go. You go on stephenking.com, you go to the Dollar Baby section, you look at the list of the stories that he has that's available, and you send him an email. Like, that's it. That's all there is. And I think people think it's like this big mysterious thing. Like, it's not. You can totally ask for them yourself. Like, anybody can ask. The worst they can say is no, but I thought they would say no. But my kids are like, there you go. And I was like, whoa, okay, here we are.
Yeah. And once you get it, it's just like, you got to run with it.
Because you only have a year.
Yeah. So it's only a year. That's his limit right there. Mm-hmm. So you can't like re-up or anything like that. It's got to.
You can, but they try to keep it, because also like something like Castle Rock is buying up a lot of the rights for a lot of the short stories because they want to use them in the show. And so sometimes stories are pulled from rights for different things. And so I think they just want to keep everything kind of as short term as possible.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's really cool. So when it comes to film and everything that you have been really kind of steeped into, you're also doing some podcasts as well, correct?
I am, yes. So I have two podcasts right now. My first podcast is a horror movie survival guide, which I've been doing for 3 years. We're almost at 200 episodes. And it's amazing. It's me talking about horror movies with my best friend, Terry Gamble. And
Nice.
we talk about how you survive a horror film. And we try to really go all over the map in terms of what kinds of films we talk about. So, we do talk about, more modern popular things, but we also talk about older, weirder things and things that we feel like didn't get its due. And so I love doing it so much. And we have, no plans to stop. And then I just started a new podcast that just had its first episode come out. So I'm a big fan of the filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's one of my very favorite filmmakers, and he's such a madman. So I'm doing a podcast that is called Jodorowsky.
That's fantastic. It's one of the best. It's been one of the best titles for a show I've ever heard. Like, I love it.
Thank you. It's so goofy. It makes me laugh every time I say it, but it's just, it's really fun. So, and we wanted to make it kind of a fun, friendly way to look at Jodorowsky because he can be a very heavy filmmaker, but we want to make it also quite accessible and let, people know that there is, even though there's two sides to him, right? There's a kind of a playful side and there's more of a serious side. And we're trying to boost out the playful side, I think.
Nice. And you're going to be talking about films like El Topo, I'm sure.
Yes. So we're going chronologically through his work
really?
And really talking about everything. And we're trying to get into the comics and the books as well. So we just talked about his first two short films, which were La Cravate and Teatro Sans Fin. And then we talked a little bit about his comic Annabelle 5. And then we talked about Fondo and Lise, which is his first film, which is fantastic. So I mean, this is the thing, like for me, it's a joy because I am getting to talk about things that I love with enthusiasm. And I think you can hear in my voice, I'm very excited about it. Like those things really, really do interest me. And so getting to delve even deeper and kind of study them in an academic almost way makes it fun for me because then I get to do it with a purpose, I guess. Like I'd always want to delve into everything as deep as I can, but now I'm like, oh, okay, I actually have to read these comics for this show. And so here I am studying it in a way.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And yeah, you can really tell just how, like how much passion someone has for something right in their voice. When they get ramped up, they get excited. They just want to like make sure that everyone knows about how awesome this thing is. And like, that's what I really love, like seeing about the few times that I'd gone to the Ziegfeld for a classic film. There was, every now and then there'll be someone there as a host, basically just kind of ramping everything up and talking a little bit about the movie, about what we're about to watch, not spoiling anything, but, just letting them know that just like, hey, this really is something special. We're going to talk, here are a few things to keep in mind and here are the few things to look out for and everything. That sort of thing. I've always really responded to that. Mm-hmm. So, like hearing that, like in podcast form, we have like all of us, we all have a chance to kind of be our own hosts, be our own curators for this sort of content. I think it's really amazing. And
I guess, something that's always been I enjoy very much is sharing things I love with other people, especially films, because there's a film that I love, then I can share it with someone and kind of watch them watch it, which gives me a joy. So I think that's why I enjoy doing film programming so much at the New Beverly, because I could watch these movies and like talk to them afterwards and how did you like it? And what did you think? And so I think that goes on now through with my podcast is I'm still recommending things for people to watch. And so when I get people coming back and there's movies like, something like Oculus, which is Mike Flanagan, which is, I think is a brilliant film. It's so good. And I've been championing it ever since it came out. And so when somebody comes to me like, oh, I watch Oculus because you mentioned it and you talked about it on the podcast and it was really, really good. That makes me so happy. It's like, okay, well, Oculus made me happy. Now I just gave 2 hours of joy to somebody else. And like that kind of like paying it forward in a way, and like everyone wins. Mike Flanagan wins. Karen Gillan wins. Everyone wins,
Absolutely.
But my podcast, although in real life I am very anti-spoiler, my podcast is very spoiler heavy. It's basically like a breakdown, deep dive of a film. So I would recommend watching a film before you listen to the podcast.
Awesome. I love it. I do. I love it. And it's funny because like recently I took a little trip over to our local theater over here in St. Louis, and it's a chain theater. It's, Marcus theaters and everything. And I was asking them because they had started showing a couple of classic films. They're showing like every now and then they'd show like The Breakfast Club or, a couple other, favorites from like the 80s, a couple from the 70s and everything. And I asked them, it's just like, is there an opportunity? Because, like I'm a published author, I'm a podcaster, I've audiobook narrator, and I'm, part of the Missouri Writers Guild, and everything was just like all these different things. Was just saying how, like, is there a chance to kind of go up and maybe talk a little bit about these movies and everything as they start up? And they said eventually that, they finally said that that they don't really do that, that they have they have it on like a slide projector, like on the screen before the movie starts, of like different facts. I'm just like, no, it kind of takes it away. Kind of takes away from that, but let's we'll table that part of it for now. But I'm really interested to hear about your, what I always call the lightning bolt moment, since film is so, seems like so deeply ingrained in you. What was that moment that made you want to say, that's what I want to do, that's the sort of life I want to live, that's the journey I want to go on in terms of filmmaking? What was it like for you?
Well, it started out kind of differently, because I came to LA to be an actor. So when I first, had the moment of I want to be with film, it was, I want to be in film. I want to be acting in film. Mm-hmm. And I've been an actress ever since I was a little kid, and I was in community theater groups when I was, small. I went to a performing arts high school. I directed stuff as well, and I directed some plays in school and after school, and so like directing was in there, but I was always kind of looking at more from an actor perspective. And then it wasn't until the Out of Print, was my first film, and the reason that came about is we got a letter at the New Beverly when I was working there that said that that the studio was going to stop making 35 millimeter prints, and so that was like the moment where I panicked, because it was like this giant turning point in cinema that was kind of getting brushed under the rug with this like hush hush letter. And I was like, wait, this is kind of a big deal. I wish somebody would say something about this. And so then I was like, well, I guess I can say something about this. And so I started a petition to get people to get this recognition of what was happening. And then it turned into a Kickstarter campaign to make this film. So I felt, there was Keanu Reeves also made a movie called Side by Side that is also about the digital changeover, but his movie is a lot more focused on filming, like what medium you're filming on. And this, my film is more about what you're watching something on. Yeah. So I think that that's like a nice kind of, not that I'm comparing myself to Keanu Reeves in any sort of way, because he wins that fight. He will always win that fight. But, kind of a nice bookend is, here's what you're filming on and here's what you're watching it on. So I just wanted to have a little marker in this change point in history, and then also to have this, to say something about the importance, because, this is all, a moot point now, because we can't be watching anything in a cinema right now. But, the idea that the ultimate way to watch a film is in a cinema with other people, because that changes the way a film is. And I haven't been in a cinema since March of 2020, and it kills me, because that's my church. That's what I want to do. That's where I go, multiple times a week. And even if I'm alone, I'm not alone, because I'm with all of these other people. So I am, very much longing for that experience, and definitely watching things at home alone on my TV is not necessarily the ideal way to watch a film, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I even tried a little something when, right when the quarantine was really kind of, really getting into gear, like around March or so of 2020, around the same time. I started just like a little Facebook page. It was just called CVQ Cinema, Coronavirus Quarantine Cinema. It was just like, so that way I could basically just say, this week we're watching this, and so if anyone else has a copy of it, then they can go ahead and watch it. And then afterwards we can, convene over at that page and everything, and just talk a little bit about it, and just to kind of get that some sort of experience for that. Cause I'm starving for it too. Yeah. The last time I'd gone to the theater was January of 2020.
Okay. What was the last one you saw?
Actually, it was my second time seeing The Rise of Skywalker. I took my father to see it because he was in town.
Okay. Mine was the second time I saw Birds of Prey, which was at the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard. So I was like, it was at the big theater, like the big Chinese thing. And I was like, I feel good about that. If I have to like choose the last one, that's not bad.
I've heard really good things about it too. I've heard it was like, it was a very interesting, take on, in DC, and that Margot Robbie did a really good job with it.
Oh, well, I'm actually not really a comic book person, so it's weird that I saw it twice. But I like, I guess Ewan McGregor's in it. I like him a lot. I thought it was a very fun movie that I feel like I didn't need any context for, which was like I could just be thrown in, and I'm like, okay, I kind of sort of know who Harley Quinn is. Let's go. And I was like, all right, it's fun.
There you go. Yeah, it's kind of amazing, like different movies, like kind of looking back on it and saying like, oh, I've seen this movie twice. I was the only one, like I had gone to see it alone, like Quiz Show. Saw that, my freshman year in college, saw that twice, and and I loved it, and I was like the only one that like out of all my friends that made a point to see that. So it is there really is something to be said about those those films that really just grab you and make you want to keep going back.
Well, I'm a multiple. I mean, I'm a multiple watcher. Like that is kind of my jam. Is if I like a movie, I will go back and see it multiple times in the theater. My winner for in its original theatrical run is Across the Universe, which I saw 12 times in the theater. So
12 times?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. It's joyful. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's the kind of girl I am.
I thought, like for me, it was 4 times seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original. That was my.
I got you beat, son.
That was. I thought that was much. That was a bit much seeing it 4 times, but yeah, to triple that, wow! Like that's. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. But it's kind of like what Joe Carnahan was saying in Out of Print. How it's just like. You support these things. You keep going back to them and everything because it's what you love. It's what's in you. So,
yeah, I will support Julie Taymor 100%. She deserves every penny of that money.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the Green Bird that she did on Broadway.
Nice.
And got to meet Elliot Goldenthal that night, and it was still like one of my. I'd put that in my top 10 moments of all of New York. It was just an amazing experience.
That sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was, so you came to LA, you said in 2001, correct?
Uh-huh. And
then from there, according to what you said in Out of Print, it wasn't that long before you started at least trying to get a job over at the New Beverly, correct?
Yes. So I had, because I grew up in Las Vegas and revival cinemas don't exist in Las Vegas. They just, we don't have them. And so when I came here to LA, within the first few weeks, I found a calendar for the New Beverly, and the New Beverly calendar hasn't changed since 1978. So it looks incredibly groovy, and like groovy is my aesthetic. And I saw what they were playing and I was like, oh my God. So the first time that I went, it was for a Goonies and Gremlins double bill. And there were some hardcore Corey Feldman fans in the house who like lost their shit every time it came on screen. And I died because I was like, I thought I was the only one. It's not just me. There's others like me. So I loved that it was not fancy, and I loved that it looked very 70s, and like it didn't really look like you could have walked in there in 1978 and not much would have been different. Like there was still a painful on the wall. They still only took cash. Like it was pretty much the same. So Sherman Torgan was the owner, and I asked him for a job for 5 years every time I went. Every time I was like, when are you going to give me a job? I'm here. I'm not going away. Like, and so finally he gave me one of his own shifts. And then I kind of didn't ever let me go. I was like, no. Now I'm in. And it was just, I was so happy to work there because it really was my favorite place in the whole world. And then I also got to watch endless amounts of movies on my shift and, be paid for it. And how amazing is that? It was only on 35 millimeter, and it had this really cast of weirdos and outsiders who came in there, which is my people. And then going from there and then getting to start to do a guest programming series where we had directors come in and talk about their favorite movies, and getting to meet all of, people who were my heroes and getting to talk to them about their experiences and, exactly what, how do they come to where they're doing, and why these specific films, what do you like about them? And it's just being in a place where, all of the film nerds you ever want to hang out with are all there and are hardcore. And it's not, even though there were people who were drawn there by a name, they want to go see Edgar Wright, but they also, Edgar Wright likes this film, so it must be good. So let me watch this film because he recommends it. So he is bringing in people with his name, but it's also for this kind of good cause of showing them something they probably haven't seen before. Yeah. So, and watching a movie with an incredibly packed house of people who really, really, really want to be there is the best experience ever. It's just electric. And I got to sit through so many of those incredible screenings. It was so much fun.
Oh, it's great. How long did it take for you to be able to program a double feature yourself?
Pretty soon after I worked there, because Sherman would ask, employees for suggestions.
Yeah.
And so it was the kind of thing where, maybe you would get to program around your birthday. So I've got to do a bunch of different really cool birthday double features. I did once. I'm obsessed with Donovan Leitch. So I showed the In Crowd and The Blob. And
Wow.
He came and he was so nice and he's so beautiful. And he came up to do like an introduction, and he came up and he kissed me on my cheek, and my mind went blank. I lost it. Like everything in my head was gone. And I just stared at the audience and everyone started to laugh. And then he looked over at me and he started to laugh. And I was like, I'll see you after the movie. Like it was gone. Like I had nothing. Wow. So I think that's the only time I've ever been kissed where it's just like blanked my brain. I had a great one that was Crybaby and Hairspray, where the hairspray was dance along. So you got to get up and dance along with the movie, which was super fun. I did Secretive Nim and the Chipmunk Adventure, which, don't judge me here, but the Chipmunk Adventure is amazing. Susan Terrell is one of the voices, which should tell you something right there. But it's about the chipmunks and the chipettes who get bamboozled into going into a diamond smuggling hot air balloon race around the world by a Eurotrash brother and sister couple.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, I will vouch for that too, because that's that one for me is it's a difficult one to watch because of the baby penguin scene.
Oh, I fast forward it every time.
Yeah,
I can't.
You have to walk away. You have to walk away. Just like
it makes me cry immediately. I totally can't do it. Yes, you're totally right.
It's like if you really hate me, you're going to do like a double feature of that and Dumbo, and I'm just going to be out in the lobby. I'm not coming in.
We'll have Bambi at midnight to round it out.
Oh, damn you! Oh man, yeah. So with those, like having Crybaby and Hairspray, was John Waters involved at all in that? Like,
no, but he did. He did come to the theater a couple of times to do signings and stuff, and sometimes he would speak. And so, sometimes we would have those kind of things as well, where like we get hired out for events and movie premieres, and so there's always this kind of cast of characters. And of course, John Waters is one of the best public speakers you'll ever see. He's incredible and such a hero of mine. I think, his films, I love his films because they're just like what films aren't supposed to be. And I love that about him. And just his wit, and they are. And like his appreciation for sleaze, which my favorite story about John Waters is he says in one of his books that the greatest moment of his life was one time he was sitting at a bus stop and a car went by and threw some Chinese food out the window and it hit him in the face. And that was like the best moment of his life. And I'm like, I love you, John Waters. That makes me love you so much.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so good. That's so good. And I mean, while I was watching out of print, like seeing all these names that I, know and love like throughout the years, Kevin Smith, Joe Dante, John Landis, Ryan Johnson, Fred Decker, Joe Carnahan, Edgar Wright, Patton Oswalt, the great Clu Gulager. Like, I mean, all these great people, how were they just really like anxious to get involved in this because of what you would put the word out about, like about how it was all about like how 35 millimeter was fading away? Yes.
So I had met pretty much everybody I interviewed in the film at the New Beverly, because many of them most of them they either came there or had done programming of some sort there.
Nice.
So they knew me from that, and they knew that I had, had done this petition, and they were all very supportive of that and getting the word out, which is very awesome. Clu, as you know, in the movie, is a regular, and so he was just there all the time. And I knew Clu from, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie from '88. It's called Tapeheads. And it stars John Cusack and Tim Robbins.
Of it. I've never seen it, but I know of it.
Definitely watch it because it's what's that?
It was Mike Nesmith, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's one of the producers. Yeah, and it's really, really funny, and it's really, really weird and very underseen. But Clu is in it, and that was a big family in like movie we watched a lot growing up. And so so the first time I saw him at the theater, I was like, it's the guy from Tapeheads. And I was like really, really excited. And I was so stupid because I didn't know he had this, of course, this huge career of things that he'd been doing forever. And I sort of, as I got to know him, I learned more about him and what he got to, what he did and how his epic career, and just one of the most fearless moviegoers, because he will literally watch anything. Like he does it like Antichrist, he's in, like, doesn't matter. Like, like anything. You're like, wow, it's just this, because I don't even have that as a movie lover. Like there are certain movies where I'm like, nope, not interested, but he's just like, I'll give it a try. Right. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. I don't see myself, like watching Cannibal Holocaust anytime soon, but at the same time, like,
I watched it at the New Beverly once to be able to say that I've seen it.
Oh my! It's kind of like doing New Year's Eve at New York in Times Square. Right. Just you do it once, just to say you did it, and then you don't have to do it again.
Exactly. So yes, I've seen Cannibal Holocaust. I will not watch Cannibal Holocaust again. The end.
I don't see myself watching it, so I'll just say like I was in Times Square for New Year's Eve, and I'm good. So with that,
I think I think that's the thing about movies. It's like, you only need to watch the movies you want to watch, right? You shouldn't feel pressure from anybody to watch movies you don't want to watch. And just because you haven't seen it is never a thing. Every movie lover, no matter how hardcore, has their movie gaps, movies that like they should have seen that they haven't seen. For instance, I've not seen The Godfather. Haven't seen it. Haven't seen that whole series. Haven't seen it. That's embarrassing to say as a big film fan, but I'll get to it. And when I do, I'll want to see it in the big screen with the big theater and the whole bit. So I think the thing, and then people are like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Haven't you seen it?" Like, no, that's not. That's not the
movies that are out there that I even.
Yeah, and like the attitude is not to have to shame people for making them feel bad for not seeing it. You go, okay, I feel lucky. You feel lucky because you haven't seen it. You get to see it for the first time. How exciting is that, right? And I think that's a cool way to look at it. And I think that's something that what's yours? Let's hear it. You got one. What's your big movie that you should have seen that you haven't seen?
Oh, geez. Which one is it? I have yet to watch Gone with the Wind all the way through.
Okay.
That is definitely one of mine. I have yet to watch. Oh, geez. I'm trying to think of like the ones that were listed in the top 10 in the. I was always like religiously watching the 98 special about from AFI, like 100 years, 100 movies. And let's see, On the Waterfront is one I've never seen. And what other one is there are a lot that I had
and that's cool though, right? Because the great thing about movies is you're never going to run out.
You get to discover them. Yeah. I wasn't until I was a sophomore in college when I finally got to sit down and watch Network. And it's now to me
so good.
I'd easily put it in my top 5 all-time favorites, like maybe even top 3.
Yeah. It's a brilliant film.
It really is. And that's one that and you don't hear many people really talking about that one, even though like it's literally dictated everything that's happened since in media. So yeah, it's really something, about that. So during that time, like you get to do out of print, you get to, make the movie and everything. And then when it was ready to release, is that when I want to take a step back just a little bit, because during the making of it, you actually got to work with your brother on the music.
I did. Yes. My brother, Peter Marchese, is a musician, and there's always in our family, I've been the one with the movies and he's been the one with the music. Yeah. And so he plays drums, he plays guitar, he plays bass, he plays keyboards, he sings. And he's had multiple bands over the years. He was in a band called Voyager 1 in Tokyo, Idaho, that were really popular. He lived in Seattle for a long time. Yeah. And so when I started to make this movie, I was like, hey, will you do the music for my movie? And he's like, I don't know how to score a movie. And I'm like, I don't know how to make a movie, but let's figure it out. And so he did a great job. And the thing that, it was very difficult because when I started, I didn't really know yet what the tone of the film was, right? I knew I wanted it to be fun. I feel like there aren't enough fun documentaries. So I wanted to be, something that was joyful. So I started like, at first I was like, maybe like Air, like kind of ambient. So he started kind of doing that. And then by the end of it, I was like, no, more like James Brown. And so I was like more into that. So like you have this big kind of swath of different kinds of musical styles, but I think he killed it. I love the music in the movie so much. And I'm so proud that I got to work with my brother on my first film and get to put his name up there with mine, which felt really good.
And it's a great score too. It's got this really great like 70s grindhouse kind of feel to it that just works perfectly with all of the different interstitial that you got going with the different previews of coming attractions, and
aren't those so much fun?
I love them.
Let me. This is a handy tip for filmmakers listening out there. So my film involves a lot of what they call snipes, which are the short little things like the "Let's all go to the lobby" thing you would see before movies, and so there's a lot of those, a lot of vintage things. So there's a website called Internet Archive where you can find all public domain stuff. So every clip in my movie. So I have a clip from Charade, I have a clip from Freaks, I have a clip from Plan 9 from Outer Space, from Night of the Living Dead. They're all public domain. So these are things that you can use in your film for free. So if you're a filmmaker who is looking for stuff, that's a real easy way to do it.
And name that one more time. You said Internet Archives? Awesome. As you're putting that whole thing together and then you're ready to get it out there, because you wound up actually doing a pretty good extensive look at all of revival cinema. What was there anything that you learned during your trips, like internationally?
So you're asking about the making of the film or after the film was finished?
The making of it, because I know that you were obviously you couldn't really put in the stuff after it was made, but all the stuff that you were doing around the world and everything, kind of sharing your experiences with 35 millimeter and getting to see all these different revival houses. What was that like? So the film, so Out of Print itself only really shows the New Beverly Cinema and then the Prince Charles Cinema, which is in London. And those were kind of a stand-in for revival cinema houses in general. And here are two examples of these, but you'll find one of these in all of your hometown. It's basically the idea, and that you should be supporting the one near you. So the film was shot half on digital and half on film because I really wanted to show the difference. So God bless Ryan Johnson for explaining the difference between 35 and digital in a way that allowed me to do a split screen, which is awesome. So you'll be able to see. That was really cool. He's amazing. He started talking and I was like, please don't stop, Ryan. Please don't stop. And it was he was just perfectly describing it. It was amazing. He's so cool. So you'll get to see the difference between 35 and digital in the film, which I think a lot of people don't really know visually what the difference is. And so the coolest thing was I got to have a 35 millimeter print of the film struck as well. So there's one, which was sitting in my apartment, making me very nervous that it was just that one sitting there. So it is now being housed in nice humidity and temperature at the Academy Archives, where it will live forever, which I'm very happy about, because then I don't have to worry about it. And I go, yay, take care of it, Academy. Thank you so much. So, and then I did get to tour with the film. It played in art house cinemas and film archives and universities all over the world. So I got to take it and show it around England and show it at a bunch of universities on the East Coast. And it was really interesting to talk to people, and a lot of people, I remember we had a screening at Wellesley in Massachusetts, and a lot of the girls there had never thought of 35 millimeter. They just didn't, they never thought of where the movie came from. It just didn't matter. And I think a lot of people don't. And I think, there's a film clip that we use in the movie that's from a 70s after school special, a school film strip that shows you how projection works, how it actually goes through the machine and how the light shows through and everything. And I think that's something that people just didn't ever really think about, because why would you, right? You go in to watch a movie, you're not there to think about where the movie's coming from. So I think introducing, and I watched the movie and we brought the girls back up into the projector booth so they could actually see the film in there and running through it and everything. And it just kind of blew their minds. It was oh, well, I just learned something completely new today that I just didn't know how it worked. And so I think that feels good to know that people are, you'll be able to, especially in the years to come when film becomes more and more obsolete, the people to say, okay, this is how this thing did work and used to work. And it still works. It still works. Yep. It still does. It still does. And it's really amazing just how, and I didn't even realize just how much of a difference it is from 35 millimeter to digital until I saw that whole segment that Ryan Johnson was doing in the movie. And so
I'm so glad to hear that. Ryan, in case you're listening, you rock.
Yes. Yeah, he does. He does. He really does.
Him and Noah together being interviewed is just such a joy. They were so much fun to because when you have friends playing off each other, that energy is so much more sparky. And I think you see that. And I feel like the great tradition of documentaries, blooper reels should be over the credits. So we get silliness there as well.
Absolutely. I definitely agree there. So
I feel like every movie should be improved by bloopers over the credits, and a dance number. I feel like that should always be included in every movie.
Dance number. Interesting. There are definitely some that I feel like once they put in their dance number, it really did kind of elevate it. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said there. So during that time, so 2014 hits, the movie's out, and that was around the time when you also like left the New Beverly to pursue other endeavors, like correct.
Yeah.
So what was it like, post New Beverly when you were able to really kind of get yourself out there? What was it like working to, get more filmmaking work done?
Well, it was just, going with the film and then trying, and because it was my first film, it was really the kind of thing of learning how to make a film from A to Z, of learning how to raise the money and then, do production, pre-production, do production, do post-production, learn how to get a distribution company, learn how to tour the film and do all of this kind of PR and everything. So I think that it was a really wonderful way to get, to make my first film about something that I was very, very passionate about, and also get to learn how to make a film on 35 millimeter as well, which was fantastic. And then to have a film that, I always will be such a big proponent of watching films in with an audience in a cinema. So to have this film that will be there forever, to have that argument to say, please go see this, I think that's something I'm happy that my name will be attached to that, that sentiment for all time. And a lot of people do tell me that the film does kind of feel like Julia in film form. I think it's a very indicative of my personality. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So, and it was the thing of what's next. Right. And so there's been a whole bunch of just difference. And I think it's been interesting to see. I started to come to LA to be an actor, but then I kind of started to turn into director. And then I'm also doing podcasting now. And it's like, there's just all different. And it's just things that come to me, and then things that I like, horror movies. So I'm a guide is with my best friend. And that means I get to watch movies and talk about movies with my best friend, which is amazing. And doing what's next. And now I get to make, this short film that's my favorite story by my favorite author. So it's these wonderful things that I'm getting, I feel like, rewarded for things that I'm uber passionate about, and getting to talk to more people about it and do something bigger with it, which is so cool. Because I've been reading Stephen King since I was in junior high, and have always been a big nerd, and had no idea it was ever going to lead to anything. Right. It's just like I'm reading his books, but now it's actually, okay, well, now I've become, this, because I've read like this kind of like, Stephen King, people know publicly now how big the love is. And I think, same with the film, it's like people know publicly how big the love is. And I think that it's something to be said, that how awesome it is to be rewarded for passion and enthusiasm. And I think that's people shouldn't underestimate that. There's reasons where people like follow your passions. Like, well, do it because people like it when you're passionate about something and in a genuine way.
Absolutely. And that's really what this show is all about. Excelsior Journeys is it puts a spotlight on people that are pursuing their creative passions no matter what. And even if they have like a full-time job and everything, if they're still pushing forward on it, like finding their time to do it, to basically like get that creative outlet out into the world. That's what this is all about. This show celebrates that. So you're the perfect example of someone living, the success because, like you said, you not only came into LA with the passion of being involved in film, but also an open mind, because you didn't just say, I'm going to act and that's it. Like you allowed yourself to really kind of indulge all these other forms. And now look what you're doing. Now this is fantastic. So, huge kudos to you for doing this. I think it's a wonderful thing. And it's something that needs to be acknowledged.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm a happy girl who's happy about, film related stuff. Like you give me something film related and I'm a happy girl. So like, this is, Los Angeles is kind of a strange city, and it can be very big and isolating. And it's nice that there can be a community of film lovers that can all kind of stick together and be like, we can communicate and connect on that level, which I think is really nice, especially, in a time now where we can't physically connect at all. Right. Yeah. So it's nice to know. So like I have a weekly movie night that I've been doing with my friends for about 10 years now. And we used to do it in person and we get together and watch a movie every week. And now we do it virtually. But the idea is that, every person has a turn, and there's about 8 of us, and we all take turns, picking the movie. And because everybody has a different has different movie knowledge and different kind of movie love. And so you're guaranteed to have something completely different from every single person every week. But the idea is that like you watch anything, like there's no veto, like you just watch it and like that's okay. And like maybe you didn't like it and maybe you did, but that's kind of a fun thing where you can share something with people and have it be no judgment, no fear. You just, nobody's going to make fun of you for it. Like we're just going to all watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely. And speaking of the whole the wonderful community of gathering together to watch a movie and everything, until 2020 hit, like it was full steam ahead with movie theaters. That was going to be it. And now now the COVID is what is done what it's done, and we're in this weird area of just like we can sort of see a light at the end of the tunnel. But then it's just like, okay, once that happens, now what? What do you see for the future of theaters? What do you think they should do to kind of stay out there? Because I'm a huge advocate of movie theaters in general. I love them, and they really are. Like when they're an event, they can be a place where an event takes place, and so it definitely means the world to me to have movie theaters accessible to everyone out there. What do you think they should maybe do to kind of stay afloat, to stay relevant for a lot of people that just decide that they're going to stick with this new measure of like staying home and watching a movie?
I mean, I don't know how I can, give advice to, I can't give advice about that. What I can say is I think that the people who know the importance of seeing in a cinema will always know that importance. And I think it's different because, I live in a city where I'm very lucky, where we have so many different movie theaters and they're all different kinds. And it's not just you're having a big multiplex of 12 different cinemas where it's completely impersonal. You don't know any of the staff. You just walk in and walk out and there's no exchange, as opposed to a lot of the cinemas we have here where it's, one screen or maybe two screens. And it's something where it's a very interpersonal thing. There's people who come back very regularly. People know each other's names. You hang out and you talk afterwards. And like, that's what I'm interested in. And I think, that's something that as a true film nerd, something that I crave. And so but I'm also a very social person. So I just like being with other people. I like talking about movies with other people and dissecting things. So to me, watching things at home by myself feels very unnatural. And so I'm going to get back to it as soon as I can, but I understand if I was living in a city where multiplexes were the only option, it would feel differently to me. That being said, I would still be as anxious to get back to the multiplex as anything. Growing up in Las Vegas, that's all we had. And so I loved going to the movies just the same. Yeah. But I think it's something where people have, this country isn't as good as a lot of, I think of Canada or Ireland, where they're very, very arts funded, where they're there to really support artists. And I think America doesn't do that as well. But there's so many. What did people turn to when this lockdown started? They turned to art, right? They turned to movies, they turned to TV, they turned to music. And these are things that show you how important these things are. So I think once people can remember what it's like to go see a comedy or a horror movie with 200 people and what the feeling in that room is of everybody laughing or everybody being scared, it just elevates the film in a completely different level. It just really does change, because I'm sure that you've had the experience where you've watched a movie in a cinema with an audience. It was hilarious. And then you go home and you show it with like a friend and then there's nothing. And you're like, well, it's not the same movie, but it is the same movie, right? And it's just the energy in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering if maybe like the fact that everyone is so like anxious to get out there and be social, that it actually would wind up being a positive for movie theaters, because then you can hopefully, and I'm saying hopefully, I can't, I would love it if this happens, but if, like some of these local, theaters that are near us can go ahead and just like dedicate, like some one or two of their screens to, like older films, and bring in someone to introduce them and have a little, chat about them afterwards and everything. Hopefully that will kind of, up the social aspect. I'm not saying it will, but I would love to see that happen.
Well, I know it's a big question mark for everything. And the thought of all of the cinemas that won't reopen when this is over is heartbreaking to me, because every time one of them closes, I feel it very personally. But I just hope that people will support and see the importance of it. And I think that, now that it has been taken away, maybe people will be like, oh, well, actually, I do really miss this and really do want to support it. And I have this whole lockdown been supporting independent cinemas around the world of just sending them, small donations. And that don't mean a lot, individually, but hopefully everybody, all together, because even if they're closed, they can still do donations. You can do gift cards. You can do things that are going to help that cinema near you stay open.
Absolutely. Now, where can our listeners find you?
So I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as Julia C. Marchese. It's JuliaCMarchese. And I am very active on there. I answer my DMs. So if you want to ask me anything, talk to me about anything, movies, whatnot, I'm on there. You can find my podcast and movie stuff all over there. You can listen to me on Twitter, talk about, vintage furniture or 80s movies or, any sort of thing. Yeah. I love movie suggestions as well. If you have any, I always love to get new suggestions.
Excellent. And of course, you can hear Julia on the podcast as well. Horror Movie Survival Guide. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And Jodorowsky, greatest.
See, it's just fun to say, isn't it?
It really is. Tell me you're doing Jodorowsky's Dune. Are you going to be?
Yes, of course we are.
Oh, sweet. That I'm very, very anxious to tune in and listen to that one. For the next few episodes, I'm going to be playing the answers that I collect from the question of the month for March. The question of the month, if you don't know, is this: what is stopping you from making the first step toward achieving your creative goals? What is the one thing that is stopping you from doing it? I will share my own for this episode. Mine is simply time management. There is a lot that I have on my plate, and what I really need to make sure I focus on is getting rid of the time wasters and just focus on what I need to do at that specific time that I have. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and I want to make sure that mine are used as well as possible. And I really hope that all of you do too. So that is my question of the month for March. What is the one thing that is stopping you? Remember, go ahead and record your answer on your voice memo app on your phone. Say your name, where you're from, what your answer is, and then go ahead and email that to me at george@he'sgotit.com. And those that I get, I will be playing on the air at the end of each episode for the rest of this month. Just like Julia says, by all means, this is a wonderful, wonderful medium film, and it needs to be seen just as much as possible. It's not just the experience of sitting down, watching it, like on your TV and everything, while other things are going on. There really is nothing that beats sitting in a dark room with, other people all around you, everyone dialed into the same thing, enjoying this wonderful spectacle on the biggest screen possible. It is something that I really, really hope will never fade away. It is something that I hope all of you go out and support as soon as you can. And I really hope that you support Julia by buying your copy of Out of Print. Definitely buy it. It is a great film, very much worth it. And it will definitely make you long for that sort of experience. So if you do that, if you get it, you watch it, you enjoy it, and you want to get out to the movie theater, then Julia has done her job. I can safely say that she has. So for Julia Marchese, this is George Soroy saying to all of you, ever upward. And I will see you next week.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you've never been an Audible customer and want to see what they offer, just go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And with this free 30-day trial, you'll have your pick of it all. You can hear books of all genres narrated by Jim Dale, Stephen Fry, Will Patton, Alex Hyde White, Jeff Brick, Neil Shaw, William Demerit, and even a few by me, George Soroy. So go to www.audibletrial.com/ExcelsiorJourneys and start your own 30-day journey with Audible today.